All right, so last tutorial we dealt with figuring out your composition in terms of rule of thirds and drawing your thumbnail sketches. This tutorial today, we are dealing with figuring out proportion. So we're taking our thumbnail sketch that we picked in our last tutorial, which I thought I liked this one the best, thinking about the rule of thirds and moving the focal point off to the side. And now we're going to be enlarging it on another sheet of paper. This time we're thinking more about the principle of design called proportion. So we're thinking really, how does one object size relate to another? In the thumbnail sketch, it was mainly just based on the placement of the objects, where this one, not only are you thinking about the placement of the objects, but you're also thinking about how big one object is compared to another and how to place it correctly. So you need a few things to start your project. We are enlarging our thumbnail, so thinking about how we had 6 boxes on our worksheet last time, now we're doing it all on one piece of paper. So you're going to need a sheet of paper to draw on. You can get it in the back of the room in the long file drawers labeled drawing paper, or you can use your sketchbook. It's up to you. Please make sure that you put your name on the back of your paper just in case it gets lost. The next thing you're going to need is a pencil, and sometimes you can use an eraser if that helps you as well. So what I did on my drawing paper first was I drew my 9 boxes, my rule of thirds, just to help me out. All right, so now I am going to make sure that I am sitting directly in front of my still life, because remember, we always draw from observation. The first thing I'm going to think about drawing is I'm thinking I want to draw the pumpkin first. So I am actually going to draw the height of the pumpkin. I'm just going to put some markers on my paper. I'm going to say that I want my focal point to be the pumpkin, and I want it primarily in the upper area of my drawing paper. So I'm just going to put a line here and a line here, saying this is going to be where my top of the pumpkin is going to be, and this is where the bottom is going to be. Now here's where we get technical. We want to try to measure everything that we do. So I'm going to use my pencil as my measuring tool. I'm going to hold my pencil out directly in front of me with my arm fully extended. This will keep it consistent with every time I go to measure. Otherwise, if I pull the pencil closer to me or extend it even further or stand up and move it closer, the measurements are going to be a little bit different. So sit in the same spot and extend your arm fully. Now, if I take the top of my pencil and I line it up with the top of that pumpkin and I move my finger down, and I measure it to my thumb ends at the bottom of the pumpkin, that's how tall my pumpkin is. So it's about this tall. Now, if I were to rotate the pencil, keeping my arm fully extended, I'm putting that metal tip of the pencil on the left-hand side of my pumpkin, and I'm just going to see, it looks like the pumpkin is just a little bit wider than it is tall. So now if I go back onto this drawing paper and I figure this is how tall it is, and I know that I want my stem to be about here, and I go to measure it, I can actually just use my pencil once again as my measuring tool, and I go to rotate it, it's going to go off the page. Can everyone see that? So I'm going to have it go from here, and it ends about here. So now when you go to draw this, I want to measure in where my stem is. So I'm going to start again fully extended my arm, and I'm starting at the top of the stem with the top of my pencil, and I'm dragging my finger down slowly, and it's about the same size as that metal part. Now if I just compare that to the whole height of the pumpkin, I would say it's 1, 2, 3 stems high. All right, so now if I take this and I divide that into thirds, so 1, 2, 3. Actually, I would divide it into quarters, sorry. 1, 2, 3. The stem is about this height, so we're going to go down, down. This is how wide my pumpkin is, right? It ends about here, and we said it would end off the page, so it's going off the page. All right. Now we want to make sure we draw in that little roundish part at the top. All right, so now that we have the mapping out of where the pumpkin would be on my composition, I now want to think about the other objects in relationship to the pumpkin. So I'm going to start drawing the bottle, which is next to the pumpkin on the left-hand side, this glass wine bottle right here. I need to figure out how much space, the negative space, in between the wine bottle and the pumpkin there is, right there. So let's say I take the measurement, again, fully extending my arm, I take the measurement of the top of the pumpkin, which is about a little bit less than the metal tip of this pencil, so I'm going to go a little bit less. And I turn it sideways again, arm fully extended, and I measure the distance in between the glass bottle and the pumpkin, and it's about the same. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to take this measurement of the top of the pumpkin, and I'm going to rotate it. And I'm going to put my fingers right where I had measured at the edge of the pumpkin, and I'm going to say right where this metal part is, that's where the glass bottle is going to be. Now, instead of just putting a line here to show where that measurement is, I'm going to draw what's called a plumb line, P-L-U-M. That's like an extended line, just so I can see as a guideline where the edge of my bottle will be. All right, now the next thing I want to do is figure out the height of my bottle. So again, I want to kind of draw an extended line, just looking. If I drew an imaginary line across from the top of the bottle to the pumpkin, it's actually, if I drew that, it actually hits right about there on the stem. So again, I'm going to draw another plumb line, and you know what, I'll do it in red marker so you can kind of see where these guidelines are. So we said it's about here, right? So this is the edge of the bottle, and this is where the top of the bottle will go. Now the bottle's going to go a little bit off the page, so to help you see that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try drawing it and measuring the height of the bottle. So again, I'm putting the pencil up to the top of the bottle, and I'm figuring out where it ends, which it looks like it ends right about here, so where my thumb is. And I'm going to compare that to the height of the pumpkin. So the pumpkin is definitely going to be a little bit smaller. So I would say it's probably about here. So again, I'm going to draw my guideline or my plumb line to compare that. All right, so now that I have the height of my bottle, I also want to think about the width of my bottle. So I'm going to take my pencil, fully extend my arm, start with the metal part along the edge of the bottle on the left-hand side, and slowly move my finger over to the right, and it's about there. Now if I compare that, let's say, to the circle, the top of the pumpkin, it's about the same. So measuring this and moving that over, my bottle is going to end right here off my paper. Okay, so if I took this measurement and I divided that in half, again, I'm going to use my red marker so you can see it a little bit better. That's where my neck will go, because this is half of the bottle. This is the right half, this is going to be the left half. Okay, now I want to figure out how big is the neck of the bottle compared to the body. So I start the metal part of the pencil all the way at the top, and I would say it's a little bit longer than the top of the pumpkin. So notice again, I keep referring back to that pumpkin. So the neck of the bottle is a little bit longer than the top of the pumpkin. So measuring the top of the pumpkin, the neck of the bottle is a little bit longer, to about here. So I would say the neck of the bottle, going down that middle red line, because that's our middle point. Make sure these lines are vertical, otherwise your bottle will look like it's slanted. And then the rest of the area is then the body of the bottle. All right. So now we're going to do something very similar to a lot of the other objects. We're going to think about the relationship of where this part right here of that can touches, which is right about the shoulder of the bottle. So I'm drawing that plumb line so I know where that starts. I'm thinking about how tall is that. If I measure that compared to the rest of the can. It's less than, or it's more than a third. So from here, I would say that it ends about here. So again, drawing that guideline. And we said it's a little bit more than a third, so it's probably going to end about here. And the rest of this will be the can. So let's just see this part. The can comes down. It's wider than the bottle. But if I drew an imaginary line going straight up from the side, it probably touches that pumpkin, so it's probably about here. So again, I'm drawing a guideline. Again, I'll do it in red so you can kind of see that. So the start of this part. So the can goes to about here and to about here. And we said it's about as tall as this part. All right, so now what you want to think about is that back part of the can and how it looks like it's going up. And you just want to keep measuring out all of your objects, relating them to one another, using what's called plumb lines, these red lines that we drew on our paper, measuring, fully extending your hand or your arm, and using the top of your pencil to kind of measure it, and then comparing one object to another. All right.